I once made the bad decision to take a solo trip to my family's cabin, hidden deep in the forests of northern Minnesota. When I was a kid, we used to vacation there every summer, but once my parents separated, it was basically abandoned. All my memories were of it bustling with family, but right now it felt empty and soulless, somehow darker. I should have followed my instincts and left right there and then, but I didn't. If I had, I would have avoided all the terrible things that I was about to witness. That first night, I sleep on the couch. Then early the next morning, I decide to go fishing at a nearby lake. I grab my gear and take an overgrown woodland trail that winds down through the trees. There's a low-lying mist and the air is heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine resin. Grim stories clung to this place like a curse. People often reported seeing long shadows darting through the trees and feeling an overwhelming sense of being unwelcome. Once, a couple of hikers got lost out here in a storm. They took shelter in a cave, and when they explored their surroundings, they discovered a pile of little shoes stacked up in the corner. The ones at the bottom were black and covered in moss, and the ones on top looked only a few days old. What's worse is they had to spend the night in there and wait for the storm to blow over. They said that they could have sworn that they heard sobs and cries echoing through the darkness. I hadn't thought about those stories in years, but being out here in the woods by myself had them flooding back to me. I finally reach the lake and find a nice alcove to set up my fishing gear. The water here is calm and glassy. Sunlight filters through the leaves above, dappling the surface in a gentle dance of light. I cast off into the water and find a good spot to rest my rod. As I settle onto a moss-covered rock at the water's edge, the silence envelops me, broken only by distant bird calls and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. The setting is idyllic, but the fishing is piss poor. The whole morning I don't get so much as a nibble. Normally, a lake of this size would be brimming with life. I'm contemplating moving to a different spot when I hear a chattering noise coming from somewhere in the forest. Initially I pass it off as a strange bird call, but the sounds grow louder, morphing into something unsettlingly disjointed, as if multiple voices are overlapping. I look over to the other side of the lake, where the sounds are coming from, and feel the darkness pressing back against me. Then there's a distinct movement in the shadows. Maybe it's just branches swaying in the wind, or an animal, but either way, it gives me a bad feeling. There's a tug on my fishing line as I get a bite. I whip up the rod and focus on reeling in the catch, but whatever I've caught is a fighter, and the line snaps with a sharp twang. I wind in the slack and get to work attaching a new hook. As I'm threading it on, I hear the chattering sound again, only now it's on my side of the bank. I scan the shoreline, squinting into the fading light. The tranquility of the lake, which had initially drawn me here, now seems eerily deceptive. I'm reminded of how vast these woods are and how vulnerable I am out here alone. I hastily gather my fishing tackle and backpack, driven by a rising sense of urgency. Slinging the pack over my shoulder, I head off up the trail. As the path twists above the lake, an irresistible impulse makes me glance back toward the spot where I'd been fishing. I almost trip over my own feet as I see someone moving slowly through the thicket, mere yards from where I was standing moments ago. They are partially hidden by the forest, but I can see their long, scraggly hair, and a knife, about the size of my forearm, raised high. A jolt of fear surges through my body. I turn and sprint up the trail, and I don't stop until I reach the cabin. I spend the rest of the day trying to distract myself from what I've seen. I keep busy with simple tasks. I clean up the clutter, wash dishes, and sweep the dusty floors. I can't help but make a habit of looking out of the closest window to check that I haven't been followed. I've already decided that I'll return home the next day, and I go to sleep in the only room that has a lock on it. At some point in the night, I'm awoken by that same chattering noise I heard earlier at the lake. The room I'm in is at the back of the cabin, and I can hear someone moving around outside. A dark shadow is thrown up against the curtains, and the window frame quietly rattles as the figure tries to pry it open from the other side. Thankfully, it doesn't budge, and the shadow moves on. My hands and feet are clammy as footsteps crunch away down the side of the building. Then, to my horror, I hear a window in the room next to mine squeak open. I feel like all the oxygen is being sucked out of me as the floorboards gently groan as someone moves around the cabin. I'm sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door, when the moonlight shining through the gap at the bottom fades. The door handle starts to slowly turn, but the lock holds firm. The sound that follows is harrowing, a sharp, deliberate whittling against the wood, like a blade being methodically dragged and twisted, carving into the door when the noises abruptly end. I'm straining for any sounds that might indicate there's still someone close by. Every time I hear a small creak, I wait another hour, just to be sure I'm alone. A few hours pass before I muster the courage to unlock the door. The moonlight casts long, eerie shadows across the room. I scan every corner, my eyes darting around to check for any movement. The door I had been hiding behind was marred with deep, savage cuts. Among the splinters, I noticed fragments of bone scattered on the floor, with a particularly large shard still lodged in the wood. It looks like part of a shin. The fear is crippling, and I know I have to leave immediately. I clumsily bundle my things together and throw them in the trunk of my car. Glancing back at the cabin, I see that I've left one of the lights on. I head inside to turn it off and realise that it's in one of the back rooms. Due to the stress, I forget to switch on the main light by the front door, so when I turn off the light in the back room, I'm plunged into darkness. As I'm hurrying back to the front door, a croaky voice slithers out of the darkness. "I see you." I don't even turn to look. I bolt for the door and slam it shut behind me. I'm in my car and out of there in a flash. I'll never know what was in the cabin with me and what it wanted, and I don't want to.